Thank you, Don. So, it is now time to get the official part of the evening underway. Please join me in welcoming our three candidates to the stage. Okay. So as we've outlined to you before, you each have 3 minutes to introduce yourself and tell us why you should be mayor. And we will go in the order that you're sitting, perhaps starting with Geoff at the end, then Paula, and then Riki. You'll hear a bell when you have 30 seconds remaining, and then another bell when your time is up. I know you might want to use the podium if you want to, so that's fine. So let's start with Geoff.
Thanks, Liam. Tēnā koutou katoa. Hello, everyone, and thanks for coming out tonight. I want to talk to you today about leadership, about making decisions, and about getting stuff done. Hamilton's got a great history of getting things done and of being independent. You know, I think of great families like the Gallaghers, I think of the Perrys, I think of field days, farming, manufacturing, innovation. Hamilton got to be where it is today by backing itself, by being independent and fearless. Sadly, I see that legacy is fading. Politically, Hamilton is now a city that is doing what it's told. Our city council is being dictated to by central government, and this term, every step along the way, we've capitulated. We're about to lose control of our water, and I'm not going to go and relitigate the whole Three Waters saga, but most people will know that last August I led a campaign to try and stop Three Waters, to try and get the community involved. I didn't feel I got the support I needed from half of the council or the mayor. And Hamilton had a chance to actually take leadership of that, take national leadership of Three Waters, and I just feel we drifted. And then a few months ago we came out swinging in the 15th round, but the opponent had left the building by then. Meanwhile, uncontrolled subdivision in our suburbs is a blight. That moment when the villa next door disappears without warning and you get a block of flats turn up, you lose your sunlight, you've got multiple neighbours, you've got a dozen cars parked out on the street. It's causing a lot of distress. And the nature of your street changes in a moment. And I'm really disappointed that on July the 27th, our council actually voted to increase the amount of housing we do like that. And not only that, we've gone along with a government plan to put high rises in our suburbs. If it's good enough for Christchurch City Council a couple of weeks ago to have the guts and say, no, we're not going to do that to our city, what's wrong with Hamilton? Who are we putting first? So here's the exciting bit. I want you to imagine a city council that doesn't dither, that makes decisions, that is in control of its own destiny again, that has the confidence to lead an issue like Three Waters right from the start instead of drifting, that doesn't sacrifice its suburbs to high rises to please the government, that doesn't just beg the government for more police but finds local solutions to crime, that joins the Chamber of Commerce in a 3-year campaign to get an expressway to Tauranga built, that fast tracks much needed hotels in the city, that campaigns hard to get a Waikato medical school built. That's the Hamilton I want. That's the spirit that made Hamilton. Under my leadership, that's the spirit our new council team will deliver. Thank you.
Good evening. Hamilton is a fast-growing city, and by 2025 it will look very, very different to what it does today, with nearly 200,000 people. We all want business to thrive, we all want people to thrive, and I believe we all want a better, not just a bigger city. Hamilton is a very young population. It also has a fast-growing number of seniors. So it's really important that we create a city where the young people want to stay, to live, to work. We must create affordable homes and good employment. We must create a quality lifestyle, and we must grow talent. With average house prices still above 800,000, we have a lot more to do. We have ownerships 10% below the national average. That is why I strongly supported our bid to government for the infrastructure acceleration funding of 150 million for the CBD. Hamilton's a fabulous place. We've got rich opportunity with strong levels of construction, a strong tech and innovation sector, excellent trade and tertiary education. And I believe by working together, we can harness this potential to be one of the best places to live, work and enjoy in New Zealand. But this means partnering. It means collaborating with Te Waka, with the Chamber, with other business organisations, with educational providers to promote Hamilton's value and grow innovation. That is why I established an Economic Development Committee this term, supported the refresh of Cultivate IT, supported our bid to government for the Tainui funding to unlock the super hub, and I will continue to support the case for additional medical school in the Waikato. But to attract more businesses and build more homes, we must tackle this huge problem we have about infrastructure, roads, water services, community facilities. Just one example, more than $600 million is required for a southern wastewater plant alone. We must improve our transport system, one that connects us to markets through roads, through rail, through shipping. And we must create affordable, easy to use, safe transport options for everyone. We have an obligation to look after our existing city, including our existing community assets. Our people care about their local neighbourhoods, the streets, the playgrounds, and the community spaces, and quite rightly. And when times are tough, it's really easy to put maintenance and renewal on hold, but we can't. We're paying the price for historic underinvestment. This term, we greatly enhanced the budget for renewals and maintenance. We provided bold planning and funding for growth infrastructure, but we can't deliver it alone. Hamilton's future success relies on collaborating and partnering with the private sector and government for innovative, cost-effective solutions and a strong blueprint for the future. I have 25 years plus of governance experience, a deep understanding of the city, the role it plays in the region and its contribution to New Zealand. I will bring a strong focus on the well-being of business, economy, environment and people. My style is to collaborate, to empower and to support others, because no mayoral candidate can succeed without this, no matter what promises they make. I ask for your support to be a positive voice and strong advocate for the city we love. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou, I'm Riki and I'm standing out of a sense of responsibility. Our city is growing rapidly, so it needs someone who can navigate council internally. Having worked for council, managing the policy and bylaw space for 4 years, I understand how the machine actually works on the inside, exactly who to go to get things done, and have spent plenty of time in council's chambers where all the decisions are made. Our city and workforce is continuing to become more diverse every year. I'm your only candidate who can walk in 3 spaces and say that they are proudly Māori, Pacifica and Pākehā. Central government is pushing a significant amount of changes on councils. I believe a double master's degree in both law and strategic management empowers me to navigate those changes adequately to make informed decisions. I am a proud Hamiltonian, having lived in the East Ward for the past 20 years, so I know from personal experience firsthand the benefits and opportunities in our community, as well as which communities to engage on relevant matters. I was formerly the Deputy Chair of the Waikato Chamber of Commerce and currently the Deputy Chair of the New Zealand Shareholders Association Waikato, Trustee Single Parent Services and Chair of Birthright New Zealand, as well as past President and board member of many organisations locally and nationally. Beyond this extensive governance experience, partnership with these organisations and others are crucial to bringing a community together for the betterment of our city. But beyond all of this, I believe the political system as we know it is running out of steam. The voter turnout is currently less than 1/3 of that in previous cycles, which speaks volumes. It says that people feel their voices are not being heard. I want to change that. I think the time is to do things differently, and I believe technology needs to play a part. I'm proposing a well-informed and reasoned perspective, some of which you will no doubt hear tonight, including the tackling of crime and business enablement, but then empower you, the community, to tell me if I have it wrong. Who am I to say that I know better than the community which has elected me to represent them? I believe it's more crucial than ever that we need smart leadership in council, and I look forward to sharing with you some of my thoughts this evening. Kia ora.
This seems quite thick. There you go. Way too much.
You want, what does this say, Geoff? I've definitely got mine. Okay, so thank you all for that. Now we want to understand what your vision is for Hamilton and Waikato business, and would like you to tell us what are your 3 major initiatives that will ensure and accelerate the prosperity of business in the city and region. You have 3 minutes for this again. Let's start with Paula, followed by Riki, and then Geoff.
Thank you. Only 3, I had a lot more. But what I've chosen to focus on is number 1, improving council process. Time is money for business, and unnecessary delays or slow processing leads to greater costs, especially a problem in the current climate when costs of business are escalating. This term we have put in place a business transformation team focused on making council processes and access to information faster and easier. While progress has been made, we've started on our customer response management, our data, our website. Progress has been slower than I would have liked because of COVID implications. So my focus would be progressing this more quickly than we've been able to do thus far. I'd place a particular focus on 2 matters: digitalising consent processes, right channeling, freeing up staff to deal with more difficult and complex parts of the process, and speeding up customer inquiries. Second area, supporting a strong tech and innovation sector. Collaboration through Te Waka and Cultivate to enhance our IT sector, which is part of the reason that we've done okay through these hard times. Tech is a very important part of modern economies. This means matching the tech skill that we have and innovation to the wider economic objectives for Hamilton. For example, I do believe the tech sector has a role to play in improving council's process. I want to work with University of Waikato and Te Pūkenga to promote the educational opportunities for our young population that meet future needs of the city. So that also means we've got to continue to build a city that's attractive for young people to stay in, retaining our talent. We need to tell our story to the wider world, just like we successfully did in partnership when the ambassadors came for their study tour. And none of this can be achieved without collaboration and partnership. Lastly, hospitality and events. Hospitality and retail were hit hardest during the COVID lockdown. But to be a livable, visitor-worthy city, we do need a strong offer. During COVID, we worked really hard to support this sector. Geoff and I worked together on a number of things. Reduced fees, extension of outdoor space for dining, the support of the Love Local campaign, and I pushed for us to be released from the red settings of COVID sooner, and we were. Going forward, we need to get the liquor licensing process easier. It's a little bit lumpy and slow at times. Streamline the process for sensible public dining opportunities with alcohol. I was part of a successful bid for international cricket, FIFA, and we need to build on this, build our reputation for hosting quality big events, which we do, because that will attract visitors. And on that note, let's see that hotel be built so we can attract those larger conventions that we've had to turn away. Charter trains from Auckland would be really good. Bring those Tongans down here to see games of rugby more often, I say. Zoo, museum, the theatre, they all need to be completed on track and on time. Those are my 3 focuses I've chosen tonight.
Yeah, I acknowledge a lot of what Paul has said, and it's hard to retain that to 3 focuses. Ultimately, we're seeing a labour shortage, which means that it's a very competitive market for very talented labour. I think part of that attracting really good talent to our city is to make sure that it's vibrant, and that means that we have to work together and make sure that partnerships with the Hamilton City Council are flourishing. We need to see spaces that our migrant community can enable them to feel part of our community, but ultimately we need to make sure that there is entertainment in our central city which is attractive to them, and also the ability for their communities to celebrate their culture in terms of culinary flair. So I believe having a central city which encourages a lot of talented migrants will be a very important thing going forward as our labour shortage continues. The second part is crime. We've seen a lot of issues in that crime space, and the most obvious one recently was on Sunday, which was pretty terrible. That we've got people that are not even afraid to do things in the middle of the day with people around. The sad thing is that people are feeling powerless at the moment. Our community is feeling unsafe. I also feel unsafe. I'm pretty sure I stay up a little bit later at night because I hear some unusual sounds, people being around the house as well. And I was responsive to that. I sent an email to Minister Hipkins on Sunday evening saying, you need to do more to empower our police to do things. The council can only do so many things. We have City Safe in our central city, and the issue is that they have the same powers and abilities as everyone in this room. So they can only do so much. They can identify, but as we've seen, there were a lot of people identifying those people on Sunday, and still nothing could be done about it. Somebody's going to get hurt, and I hope that the minister listens to us before that happens. It will be inevitable that will actually happen. And the third priority, I think, is around housing, enablement of housing. Particularly around the central, or closer to the central city, we've got a lot of old housing stock, which is inefficient to heat, not orientated towards the sun for that reason, and it would be an old house plonked on a section where you can actually have 4 or 5 families living there as opposed to one. You imagine that times 1,000 close to our central city, how that would actually enable our city to become much more vibrant, where people are actually on foot 15 minutes to the central city. We'll see a lot more vibrancy in terms of our entertainment uptake, but also there are the likes of our responsibilities in terms of the dairy sector. More housing pushed into other districts eats into the best land you can get globally for dairy. It's been our #1 export during COVID, and it's supported not only the country but in particular Hamilton City. There are a lot of reasons our particular city is successful because of the dairy sector that we support. So, kia ora, I think I've run out of time, but happy to continue the rest of the conversation at the chair.
Just turn the phone off, sorry. Yep, right, 3 things. Hotels. Hamilton's always been a great event city, partly because of our location, partly because of our fantastic facilities. Waikato Stadium, Clauden's Event Centre, Seddon Park. We're not getting as many events, we're not getting as many conventions because we haven't got enough beds. Pretty simple equation. We haven't got enough beds, we're not getting people staying, we're not getting people spending, all the things that go with it. So we need to fast track the hotels, and I have a way to do it. We have a way to do it. $58 million municipal endowment fund. Ewan Wilson and Ryan Hamilton played a big part in getting that established again. Let's use the damn thing. It's ready to go. We can partner with developers and we can get some hotels underway as quick as possible. There's a couple in the pipeline, but we can fast track that. So that's a real #1 for me. I want to partner with the Chamber to actually get this expressway on the way to Tauranga. let's play airy, I'd like to go all the way. We need it. We know the value of the expressway to Auckland. We know the value of roads. Let's not forget that. We've got a government which has forgotten the value of roads, and we've got NZTA which has forgotten the value of roads as well. But we need that road, and we need to actually work alongside, the council needs to work alongside the chamber to make damn sure that we get, and a new government potentially next year, to make damn sure that that's top of our radar. Third thing, it's 425 k's long and 16 k's of it run through our city. You know what it is? It's our river. Are we using it the way we should be? No way. We've turned our back on it for 100 odd years and nothing much has changed. I have worked very hard in our council to create a river precinct on Victoria Street, turning Victoria Street around between the casino and the museum. We've already got the regional theatre underway. In the last term, the council bought a block of shops where Mexico restaurant is. Only one mayoral candidate supported that, and I think it's a great vision for the future. We're going to work with developers now to get that block underway, and it's going to look bloody amazing. So if you think of Mr. Pickles, I'm sure most of you have been to Mr. Pickles, just imagine a whole line of Mr. Pickles all the way down to the museum looking out over the river, and just think what that would do for Hamilton. Alongside that, we've got a pedestrian cycle bridge which has been in the consideration for 30 odd years. I can remember writing a story back about it in 1993. We finally got it underway. We put aside $11 million for that. We've now got the government well on the way to actually paying the rest. And imagine what that would do for Hamilton. You know, a design so cool that the whole country talks about it, and it's going to happen. One other thing I'll throw in there, let's not keep cutting our access into the central city. This council has got into the habit of chopping up our roads, doing strange things with them, painting them funny colours, and cutting access into the central city. You do that at your peril. We've got to keep access into the central city easy, and business will do well. Thank you.
Okay, so I'd now like to open up to questions from the floor, and I'd also first like to stress that this is not a platform for you, so please ask your questions in a concise way. Make sure there's a clear question included rather than just a statement. Please also state your name and the organisation you're from, and importantly, please indicate if your question is to a certain candidate or for all of them to answer. So we have Rob roaming around with a microphone. So please raise your hand and he will get to you. And for the candidates, there is no time limit to answer these questions, so you don't need to worry about my bell.
I'm with the New Zealand Suicide Prevention Trust and Families for Justice. It's been said that the council and councillors are looking after corporates, not citizens, denying democracy and community people power. How do you intend at a grassroots level to change the crime rate amongst the youth? How do you intend to give us affordable homes? How do you intend to include diversity into the community? The three, Rick, Paula and Geoff over here.
It's a long question, Jack. There were 3 parts in that. Let me see if I can remember them all. First of all, safety. Unfortunately, I don't have a magic wand. If I did, I would love to see prevent crime tomorrow. It's a very complex issue, but we have started a piece of work in partnership with the University of Waikato Crime Science, with the police, with Waikato Tainui and with City Safe, to look at ways in which Hamilton City Council can play a positive part in reducing crime. I've been in touch with the Minister's office today. We're still waiting his reply, but he knows that I want to speak to him within this next day or so. The other thing you talked about, community and enabling community. No, we're not. We have a very strong sense of community. I can see councillors in the room who've played a really big part in things like the welcoming communities role. We've got community houses that we've lent in to support, and we'll continue to do that. We should do more. We've revitalised the Fairfield Hall, for one example, which Mark and Kesh had a big hand in. We're working with the Papua Nui Ndili House and others. So we are working with the community. And I can't remember what the third bit you said.
Housing.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Affordable housing.
Well, affordable housing, we're doing a lot across multiple fronts. We've got greenfield development available in Peacock, Rotokauri, Ruakura, Rotorua North, that provides for a great deal of housing. And as I said, we also made a strong bid to government for funding support so we can unlock inner city apartments. But I'll leave the rest for someone else to comment on too, or otherwise I'll talk on the whole lot.
Yeah, I think in terms of the corporate element of it, Jack, it's a balance. So a lot of those corporates do actually employ a lot of whānau as well, so they do give them jobs. From a community aspect, as I said, I'm a trustee of single parent services, and we're starting to see a lot more demand in that space. I genuinely believe that the more housing supply will help to reduce the pressures on organisations like that, which will have impacts in terms of mental health, as you talked about, and obviously in turn some of the suicide statistics. My hope is that they reduce. We're seeing plenty of our motel stock up Ulster Street, which is taken up with emergency housing, and people are living in cars, which is sad. I don't think that's going to stop until we enable more housing supply, and I think the housing supply closer to the central city will solve lots of problems, and in particular we've got some transport issues which we need to take into consideration. You get people living closer to the city, higher up, people get out of their cars and cars are taken off the road, so a lot of our congestion issues start to be tackled, and you also tackle a lot of our climate change ambitions as well, because more cars are taken off the road. So this is something I could talk about for a long time, but I'm happy to share the microphone. But I completely agree, Jack, that we need to do a lot more in those spaces. It's a cross-agency approach to these things. Council doesn't have all the answers, and it doesn't have all the tools to do those things. We need to probably, I think we'd all agree that we can always do a lot more in terms of working with a lot of community groups to solve some of these issues so that we have less antisocial behaviour, which we're currently seeing at the moment. Cheers.
Thank you. Yeah, Jack, corporates are part of the community, just like everybody else. We attended the Sky City Casino 20-year anniversary during the week, and I took some flack on Facebook, but I was having none of it. They're an important part of our community, and without corporates, you don't have jobs, you don't have everything that goes with it. In terms of housing, I've got a slightly different take on housing. At the moment, half of our new housing each year is infill, and that's really high. I would like to see, and our council has got a strategy now where they would like to take that up to 70% of all new housing as infill. I would actually like to see more greenfield. On the southwest of the city, there's a huge tract of land that is about to come into the city from Waikato District Council. We could fit another 20,000 homes there. And not only that, we've got developers ready to go. So I would actually like to see us fast track that. And the beauty of greenfield development, there's a fallacy that costs more, it doesn't. The beauty of good greenfield development is you can purpose build sustainable communities. Peacock is going to be completely different from Rotorua, for example. It's going to be medium to high density, but it's going to have parks, it's going to have bus routes, cycle lanes, walkways, all right from the start. So you can actually purpose build communities instead of just dumping a whole lot of stuff on existing streets and hoping for the best. In terms of communities, man, we've got to get to know each other again. We've got to get out of our fortresses and meet the people on the street. I've noticed that with the community, the common sense barbecues, which we've been doing for a year now. People love getting out, they love meeting us, but also they love meeting each other. It's an epiphany for them. They say, why don't we do this more often? We've got to look out for each other, we've got to care for each other, otherwise we're never going to get out of this crime machine. Thanks.
Lisa, front row.
Hey, I'm Bezo. I'm from Vision Complete Earthworks. You guys talk a lot about, this is for Geoff and Paula, sorry. You guys talk a lot about meetings and you guys work together in council. How many of the meetings is transparent to the public, that we know what's going on in closed doors?
Well, if you've got it, you can
Okay. Yeah, good question. And I have had a concern about that. Over the last year, we have had 36 pretty much all-day public excluded meetings. And in those 36 meetings, 70 issues have been discussed in public excluded. And I would estimate, because I was looking at this the other day, around about 50 could easily have been in the public. So it's become a habit for this council, and I think it's a bad habit. And I voted with my feet some time ago and stopped going to most of the private briefings, because I just felt they were wrong. And you fall into a dangerous trap if you do that. You know, you've got to socialise these issues and get them out and about. And I think we've just fallen into this habit of almost like a weekly, one-day public excluded. And I think the tendency when you do that is you kind of get to the stage where you're having the argument in private when it should be in public. And you know, you keep on, we've had some issues that we repeatedly have done, like the Maori Awards, we continually kept talking about it in private. That's not the place for it. Yeah, good question, thanks.
Thanks, Piso. Geoff and I sit in a group that looks at all the meetings and topics that are coming up, and we both decide whether it should sit in open or public excluded. Yeah, you have stopped coming to quite a few meetings, I acknowledge. Yeah. But what I was going to say is there is a place for public discussion. The place for decision making is always in the public, unless it's a commercially sensitive deal or a legal issue. The decision making must always be in public. But you ask yourself how often as a business you have meetings with your employees to explore issues, to provide information, to encourage free debate. You would do some of that. So it is about getting the balance right. Have we got the balance right? I'm not quite sure. Would have to look at that again. I do like that some of the advisory groups are all open. But even the advisory group that Geoff's in had some parts in public excluded by necessity. So, you know, in answer to your question, I haven't drilled into the statistics. I know I'm at council a lot for most of those meetings, and there's some long days, but we deal with some mighty complex issues, some huge complex issues. And sometimes you need more than one bite of the cherry to really understand what you're doing. And I really value being able to hear from my colleagues and have some back and forth. If we did that all in the council chamber, we'd be there for days and weeks.
Kia ora, yeah. My name's Kathan. I am with BNZ, but this is not financial advice, it doesn't reflect the views. I was just asking a question around rates. We're in an interesting time where out of Hamilton City Council, we've probably got some of the lowest per capita in the country. And so I understand there's reasons for that, historical, for whatever reason, but what it does give us is an opportunity. How do you actually go and leverage that then to actually, as a strategy, to go and encourage growth and further do that? And understanding, yes, in the end, yes, we need to make sure that we don't just go into debt. So I'm not pro just jumping into debt for fun, but going, how do we actually use this unique situation which we're now in for the strategy of Hamilton to actually grow overall? And that's everything.
Shall I start? So look, it is about striking the right balance, and I agree with you, both rates and debt are tools to be used. Debt certainly provides the opportunity to think intergenerationally, but we need to look beyond both rates and debt to other financial mechanisms, public-private partnerships, and certainly I've made no secret of the fact that government, if they see us as a fast-growing city that we are, if they see we can deliver on their expectations for transport, for housing, for climate, and whatever else, then they must come to the party with some funding for infrastructure, because we just can't afford it. And if we put all that infrastructure funding on the ratepayers, they can't afford it either. And it's been a bit of a perfect storm, hasn't it, with COVID and businesses hurting. Now is not the time to hammer the ratepayers. So we stuck to the projected rates increase of the 4.9, and it's proposed to go back to the 3.8. But already we've heard from ratepayers who've got variation, because 4.9 is the average. So it can swing wildly depending who you are. And that is really hurting some businesses. So there again, it's about striking a balance. And I also believe it's about being expedient about the budget you set. And that's where annual planning, public consulted annual planning, and long-term planning come to the fore. Once we've made a plan and we've given the community a look at what the next 10 years are going to be like, we should stick to it. It's not every 3 years that you get to toss the baby out with the bathwater and start all over again. That robs the community of the certainty around investment.
Yeah, Paul has covered a lot of things there. I think the long-term plan process, the past one, was actually pretty neat. You look around the country, and I think we did it better than a lot of other councils. Also, when you look around the country, I'm pretty proud to still be, obviously, in this city and standing as well to see whether I can contribute and make things even better. I think partnerships is an opportunity to ensure that our rates stay affordable. There's lots of community groups out there that I feel if they really are passionate about projects, they would actually get behind a lot of them. There's plenty of money in the Waikato. There's some philanthropists that have already put up their hands for some various projects within our city, so I think we can go to them and encourage them to do even more. One of the exciting things, again, acknowledge this council for electing unopposed the Māori ward seats. It comes with a contribution from Māori with the voices around the table, but also it comes with responsibility. So now we hopefully see the likes of both iwi and Mātāwaka, so those from other iwi, also want to be a part of the decision making and see whether they can actually dig into their coffers and actually and empower the community with some financial resourcing for projects which they see will benefit them as well.
Yeah, look, good question. The reason I voted against our rate rise this year was I felt we were irresponsible. I felt we as a council had undone all the good work that had happened in the previous term, where Mayor King realised that we were borrowing for everyday costs. We were borrowing to keep the lights on, and so took the plunge with a huge rate rise, which wasn't popular, to get us back to some sort of parity. Unfortunately, what we've done this year is we've been too loose with our spending, so not only did we have a rate rise of 4.1%, we've pushed out the borrowing to 2026 before we break even again. So we on both counts we failed, and there was too much discretionary spending. It's pretty simple, and you've got to spend on maintaining your infrastructure, you've got to spend on new infrastructure, but there was a whole heap of stuff in there that we didn't have to spend on, and that's the sort of discipline that we've just got to learn. Long term, there's no doubt that off balance sheet, there's got to be different ways of funding local government. And in fact, that was the whole genesis of the Three Waters issue. It's a balance sheet issue for some councils around the country. In fact, for all councils around the country to an extent. But rather than solving the balance sheet issue, the government jumped straight in with a crazy plan. So there is going to need to be a recognition that the country's infrastructure can't be paid for just by rates. And off balance sheet, different ways, IFF, different ways of funding is going to be just a norm, I think, in a matter of years.
If I can just add something to that. In setting the long-term plan, every elected member has the opportunity to add projects that the public have put forward or to reduce projects that the public put forward. We all had equal opportunity in that. And this is the difficulty.
So we'll get two goes now, do we?
The difficulty is around...
You can respond to her response if you want.
No, I'm just saying that, it is about the public engagement, what they want us to deliver, and having an iterative conversation about that, that's all. You can respond.
There's not much there. It's fine.
You good? Okay, finish.
Not much.
Cool.
I'm
Thank
John
you.
Calvin Eglinton. So some of the relationships you talked about being tested at times, central government and with the development community who actually deliver the things that you need in terms of economics. So one, what does a good relationship look like with central government and developers? And two, how do you individually get there?
Is that to all candidates?
Yep.
With obviously, there's been a lot of work done with developers in terms of setting up a developers forum to try and nail out some of the issues, but there's still a lot of problems there. And the most common complaint I get is inconsistency. They don't know how something's going to be dealt with. One time it was dealt this way, and another way it was this way. What I think we need to do is definitely develop a fast pre-act system for developers that we know well, developers that do a lot of houses. It just makes sense to do that. So that work's got to carry on. And I think in terms of the development community, in terms of new developments, I actually think we're too risk averse as a council. I think we've actually just got to trust developers. There's greenfield developments where we've actually got to say to developers who are actually keen to just to get on with the job, look, and they've got infrastructure solutions, and we're holding them back. We actually need to say, right, you've got solutions, because they're ready to go. We can't do it on our own. We can't, no, the time for council controlling all that is gone. We actually have to trust developers to do the job. So that's a key thing there. In terms of central government, I think Hamilton basically isn't being treated as the metro that it should be. We're 180,000 people, we're 81 people coming here a week. We're part of the Auckland, Tauranga, Hamilton, Golden Triangle. We should actually be pushing them around. They can't afford not to have us on board. And at the moment, I think we're being treated like little kids.
Thank you. In terms of working with the developers, I agree with a number of points that Geoff has made there around allowing trusted developers to have a streamlined process. I in fact have done that to some extent with a few developers this year, where I've provided them with a bespoke team to see their process through, rather than going from different offices all the time, going back to the beginning and reviewing information. So I have done that, and I think that stuff needs to be continued. I talked about the transformation, the digital transformation. That's going to make a heap of difference when developers can do a lot of their work online, and then only the really complex and significant issues need to be dealt with by staff. It should fast things up. In terms of government, look, I believe, you know, you can't go into government I've been working with government now for 21 years. I've been on local advisories, regional advisories, national advisories. I've been on the policy advisory group in Wellington for 9 years. I've been on the governance and strategy advisory group in Wellington. I was on the conference organising committee in Wellington. I've done a lot of things by keeping fresh relationships. I've attended the metro sector over the last 3 years and kept a strong relationship with other mayors from around the country. That's what you've got to do. It's got to be collaborative and it's got to be positive. That doesn't mean you have to be weak with your message. It just means you've got to be solution focused and constructive with your message. Imagine this, if I go one day to government and say, you know what, government, you can stick this idea, we don't like it at all, offer, and no, we don't like anything you're doing, no. And then the next day I go, hi Minister, please may I have $150 million for our project in the CBD. No, it's a lot more nuanced than that. It's all about relationships. You have to develop relationships. Believe me though, other people have implied that I'm not able to drive home a hard message. I am, and I am the only one that's been in Wellington to do that, and nobody here, except for some staff, have observed that. But I can tell you, I strike home a hard message when I need to. I did just recently with Grant Robertson when he was up for the Tainui opening, and I'll continue to do that. But it is around creating relationships and opportunities. And with government, Calvin, it's also about working with the main party, but also the other parties and the other movers and shakers.
I think in terms of property developers, you probably know better than everybody that there are restrictions that the council have to work within. They're led by central government, and obviously we're seeing a lot of RMA reforms at the moment. So within the confinements of that, I agree that we can actually do a lot more around using technology to make those processes more efficient. One of the other tools that we have is development contributions. I think for the central city, we've done a very good job and can continue to do a good job in encouraging more investment in the central city. It will get to a stage where we'll probably have to review that, but certainly at the moment there's plenty of opportunity for developers to help us revitalise our central city. In terms of central government, the biggest challenge I think we have, why we probably haven't seen love like other parts of the country, is we don't have cabinet ministers here. I think even the Chamber of Commerce has made mention of that. Having backbenchers as our MPs is unhelpful. So I suppose it's going to take the community to get behind some really fantastic candidates in the central government election next year to make sure that we've got people that will sit around the cabinet table and actually advocate on our behalf. We've seen it happen. We've got a fantastic expressway which goes around the city, and that was because we had people right up there that were advocating on our behalf during the Roads of National Significance conversations.
Geoff, did you want to add?
Yeah, just quick. It's an important question, so I'll just respond quickly. This council's actually got very little out of the government. With COVID, we had the shovel ready. We were promised the earth. All this work went into hundreds of shovel ready projects, and we were going to get all this funding, and we got bugger all. We have not done well out of this government. Even the plan change, even the crazy 3x3 housing change, they didn't warn us about that. They let us do a whole lot of work on another plan, and they dumped it on us without even asking us. So let's not make rosy coloured glasses about our relationship. And Paula, if you're in Wellington on your own, you shouldn't be. You should actually be down there with your chairs. Mayor King brought Dave McPherson down 12 times to Wellington. No, it's not. You should actually have your team involved with that.
I do. I have been down with other chairs, sorry. Correction. Angela and Sarah have both been involved, for example.
Thank you, Dick Burking. I used to run 2 hotels in town, as you probably know, and I think council has done an amazing job by creating a stadium, the cricket ground, clotheslands. They have excellent facilities. One thing is missing though, there's no beds. Yeah. And as a hotel operator, I shouldn't promote others to come in, but it's just ridiculous that you have all these facilities and council is not working hard on getting more hotels into town. Actually, what we have done is we have created a situation where we have given rooms away. Ulster Street becomes just for social housing. There's no beds anymore. You have operators coming into town. They can't find any rooms just to organize their conferences. What are you going to do about it?
That is an excellent question. If I had $1 for every time I've sat down with developers and asked them to what they're intending to do around a hotel. And Dick, you know, it's a very complex business. Some of them, I'm not going to name developers, but I've had lots of conversations, have said it just doesn't stack up in this current economic climate. So that's where we're looking at the opportunities that Geoff talked about quite rightly before, with the endowment fund, with land that we own, that we can co-develop with developers. And there's some irons in the fire. Things that I shouldn't be talking about because of their cultural, the commercial activity at this point. But there is work underway, and I absolutely agree with you. And in terms of Ulster Street, well, as you say, it's being used for emergency housing. We need to get those motels back by getting the people into proper fit-for-purpose housing instead of motels rooms. I met a woman who's been in a hotel room in Ulster Street for 2 years with a 5-year-old with whom she shares the same bed because it's the one bed. And so, you know, that's all wrong. I did a couple of things to assist the hotel industry though. We may well have had a 4th MIQ hotel, but I said no, we cannot afford to lose more accommodation. And as it is, the IBIS is now being refit, as you know, pulled through. So when MIQ vacates, there's a big pull through of the building that takes time and takes money. And the government, of course, is putting that building right, but it's out of action until it's open again. So it's a very complex issue, but I agree with you, and I'm not going to look around the room and talk about anyone in particular, but I know there are people in here with whom we've been talking about a new hotel with.
Yeah, I think back to the original comments, more housing supply gives us back Ulster Street, ultimately. But when you said that question, I felt like hugging you, Dick, because I think there's a fantastic opportunity just on the other side of the river. I'm not sure if that's part of the commercial sensitivity. I'm not obliged because I don't know any of that information. But my personal belief is that the site, which is Sonning Car Park, we saw an article that came out, would be a fantastic opportunity for the city to turn it not only into some car parks to replace the car parks which will be taken by the build, but then also to a fantastic apartment block which can help pay for the build, but then you have a fantastic opportunity to put some hotel spaces in there as well. Beyond that, it's sitting on the railway line. So what does that do in terms of opening up the opportunities for Britomart in Auckland? People actually come down, visit our fantastic city, walk to the Glow Box and have a conference, whether they stay overnight in the hotel or not, get back on the train and head back to Auckland. So I'm a massive fan of wanting to actually flip that narrative and say, instead of saying our train servicing a population of 1.5 million, which we're just under 200,000, actually flip that around and get that 1.5 million to service our population here and see all the fantastic things that we have to offer in our city. People will stay overnight, they'll walk into the central city, it will help create a much more vibrant central city, and then you will start to see some more business opportunities, particularly in the hospitality sector, I think. So I think that'll be an exciting opportunity, and the hug's still up for grabs later on there, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely, Dick, and that was why I mentioned it as my top priority. The Municipal Endowment Fund is it's about 58 million or 50 something million, isn't it? And our Economic Development Committee, Ewan Wilson, Ryan Hamilton, have played a real part in getting that freed up. And it's supposed to be spent on commercial property. That's its purpose. So that is a great lever for us, a great tool, and we just need to keep stonking along with that. There are things in progress, and the other thing I would add is that the council's decision to buy a block on Victoria Street on the last term was not a popular one. And that block of Mexico restaurant there next to Victoria on the river, it was not necessarily a popular one, but in my view it was correct, because if we hadn't done that and we want to revitalise our riverfront, you'd be looking at the same buildings in 25 years, just a little bit dirtier, a little bit danker, that gets us nowhere. So it was a case of trying to take control, and that's prime real estate on the riverside, and we needed to take control, and that may well yield a hotel, that decision that we took. So I'm pretty gung-ho about it. I think we're heading in a real good place, and they just can't build them fast enough, can they?
Yeah, down the front row.
Thank you, Colin Jones. I'd like to take up a comment this gentleman here talked about. I had a look at the council's balance sheet last night. A bit scary. Rates were 200 million, and 64% of that was taken up by staff wages, administration costs and consultancy fees. And looking back, it's pretty consistent. About 64% is taken up, so it doesn't need a hell of a lot for the rest of the development. So what are you councillors going to do? I mean, keeps being a lot of talk about increasing rates, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of talk about reducing costs, and reducing costs. And I think from a business point of view, that's pretty relevant. One other point, development contributions. I've been looking at the council's books now for the last 5 years. I've done work for Treasury, etc., on housing affordability. The development contributions, just so you people are aware, they have a private developer agreement, but a confidentiality clause goes in most private developer agreements. And I've been to the Ombudsman's office, I've ruled against this. The council will not provide what exactly is in those private developer agreements with confidentiality clauses. And that's actually critical for this gentleman over here. Thank you.
Right, so in terms of the rates, I think we do actually need to make some really big decisions. I think we've obviously been having a conversation about what to do with the council building. We're not using probably a quarter of it. What do we do with that? Do we sell it? Is there a better way to go? So those are big decisions that we need to make. And I think you do make a legitimate point about the payroll. It is 102 million, I think, this year. We do have a lot of staff. Then again, when I'm doing my barbecues, I get a lot of complaints about level of service. I get a lot of complaints about weeding and roundabouts and rubbish. And the simple answer to that is you have to bump up the level of service if you want that. So it does look very easy from the outside, but there is a hell of a lot to consider there. One thing I do think is worthwhile is us actually taking a look at what businesses we're in, and do we want to be in all those businesses, Are there smarter ways that we can do some of those businesses? Can we partner with someone? Can we offload some? You know, that's something I would certainly support.
Thank you. We have done a bit of work around internal savings. The Chief Executive has a KPI around that, but I do agree that we should be looking to run an efficient organisation and be right-sized. But the work is becoming bigger and more complex as the city becomes more complex. The reason we have so many contractors is they are building the city. They are building the city. They're doing the work, and that's pretty important. Our staff by no means are overpaid, generally. Actually, you'll be pleased, we did manage to reduce the Chief Executive's salary when we appointed someone else. But yeah, you're right, look, it's all about cutting your coat according to the cloth. But one person's view of core versus discretional, as we discovered earlier, is different from another person's. Someone might like to invest and believe that it's really important to invest in cycleways and mode shift. Other people might invest in something else like private property to build a hotel on. These are all iterative conversations, but Colin, where we are is that it's up to the public to get informed and to submit to council and have their say at the time that we're making the decisions. At the time they're making the decisions. I'm quite proud of the fact that this term there was 160% increased engagement for the long-term plan from the public. It's not where I want to end, it's where I want to begin. People have got to get involved, and at the moment, I'm on to the community. Have your say, Plan Change 12, have your say, have your say. Make sure you have your say, because there's one way that council won't listen, and that's when you don't speak. So have your say, use your voice, so that we can discuss this as a community.
Yeah, no, it does. I echo the sentiment. Geoff, it does look very easy from the outside. Again, I was in Hamilton City Council for 4 years, and all I can say is that the staff work bloody hard, and they work long, extensive hours. Particularly at the moment, it's a challenging time from all of the changes which are coming from central government. The ability to keep up with that is not easy. And what I saw over the period of time that I was in council was you would see reductions in staff, and then all of that institutional knowledge actually walked out the door, and the irony was you actually brought more staff in to try and make up for all the institutional knowledge that had left. And then the other part of it is that you tend to bring some people back as contractors anyway, because that knowledge is... So it's easy to say that, hey, look, we should look at cutting staff. I think, you know, I go back to that original sentiment around technology. I think if we're able to really tap into the opportunities there, we'll be able to streamline a lot more of those systems, so we can get staff really delivering much more high-valued aspects of their role, as opposed to doing some of the donkey work. That's probably where I see the opportunity. Kia ora.
Thank you. So we've had a few...
Can I answer the next question, please, which was the private developer agreement with
Colin, you've had your chance. We'd like to finish by 6:30, so
sorry,
apologies.
Yeah. We've had some questions from members that can't make it tonight. Don, if you could read those out.
Sure. There's a couple of questions here, one for each of the three candidates. For Paula, your critics would say you are indecisive and make decisions once you know which way the numbers are stacked. How would you respond to that?
Well, that is not true, and again, oh gosh, I'll say it a bit louder with the microphone. That is not true. You look across the 21 years of my local government service, and I've made some pretty hard calls. I've made some unpopular calls, and I've paid the price of that with the way people feel about those calls. I do make decisions, and I always will make decisions, but I do believe in the process, and even our own standing orders suggest that a councillor should retain an open mind until the decision-making point. And that's exactly what I did with Three Waters, by the way. I worked with the majority of council, tried to influence government over a period of 18 months, productively and cooperatively, to inform a better decision. They didn't listen, unfortunately, and then I made a definitive decision, along with all of the councillors, to not support the bill. And so that's the way I am. I don't think it's wise for people to come on council with set and rigid positions. I think we should put personal and party politics to the side and weigh up the pros and cons of decision. And sometimes, guess what? You'll have to change your mind because you get new information. You get new information, you reflect, you hear from your colleagues, and you decide somewhere else. But I've always made a decision. I've made casting vote decisions, and I'm pleased with the decisions I make.
Thank you. For Geoff, you have been critical of some of this council's decisions. How will you get support and consensus from your new council and colleagues as mayor if you've been very critical of them?
That's a good question. That's a very good question.
Absolutely, it's a question that a lot of politicians face. I have a very firm belief that you have to believe in something. I think if you don't believe in something, then you're apt to float and to drift and to start thinking about your position and survival and that. And so I believe in you've got to have a vision and you've got to stick up for your vision. And I don't make no bones about that. Having said that, I'm not a bad guy. And I've got a lot of friends. I've been in a lot of leadership positions, deputy editor at the Waikato Times, and I know how to lead a team. And it's very much in politics, issue by issue. Because we do have different views. There will be situations where I know philosophically Maxine Van Oosten is not going to support the same thing on there. But there are plenty of other times where we can come together. So it's an issue by issue thing, Don. But I have no doubt at all that a new team will shake down and we'll get to know each other and get on with the business.
Thank you, Geoff. For Riki, how will you solve car congestion in the central city, Victoria Street, Brook Street, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think we might sound like a broken record here, but if we keep building up closer to the central city, we get people out of cars, right? And we get cars off the road. People will walk across our bridges. We don't need more bridges. There's no reference to any particular bridge, but just suggesting that there's opportunity to work with the current housing stock that we have to convert it to much more efficient housing stock and get people on foot. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So that is all the time we have questions for tonight. It is now time for 2-minute closing remarks from each candidate. I'll ring the bell at 2 minutes, so please wrap up what you're saying when you hear it. Let's go in the reverse order from what we started. So Riki, then Paula, and Geoff.
Yeah, as I outlined earlier, I think there is an opportunity to do things differently. There is a lot of obviously disillusioned voters out there, well, prospective voters that I hope convert over the next couple of weeks. But that's a telling sign that we need to change things up. The opportunity to have that voice heard in the community and people feel empowered in that decision-making process is where I see us actually making that change. Technology needs to play a part there, making sure that people have good access to information. I think the role as an elected member, as opposed to going out into the community and actually canvassing lots of different ideas and thoughts and then having to land on one decision, doesn't make sense anymore. That's representative democracy. I think now we have the tools and ability to get information from the community and actually land on a decision, no different to what we have in terms of a referenda. And then it needs somebody on the inside to actually make sense of that. Having worked in council and actually understanding where everything is and who's who, I think that's going to be important in terms of making sure those wishes from the community are actually able to be implemented in terms of policy and direction for our city so that we have a fantastic city going forward. Kia ora.
Thank you. I think now more than ever what the city needs is stable, positive leadership. The sort of leadership that enables others to get the best, to brings out the best in others. Because as I've already said, no mayor can achieve anything on their own. They need a team. I'm proud of the team that I put together last year. We've been stable, collaborative, and largely worked very well together. I think it's important for a mayor to bring out the talents and skills of the team. And I have done this. And you've heard about this today when you've heard about the successes in some of the portfolios. So I would be creating something which looked like 15 leaders, not one leader. The mayor is not the be-all and end-all. The mayor is the captain of the ship and needs a strong crew to go forward. I really strongly believe we do not need divisive and put-down politics at this time. We do not need a leader who's going to play the person, put them down in the paper, or keep commenting on their decisions and play negative games like that. We need someone who's going to build a team up and enhance them and encourage them to get the best that they, to be the best that they can be, to get the best results that they can bring to the table. Because you know what, it's not actually just about the mayor. The other thing I will say before I finish is you need a mayor who walks among the community regularly. The community doesn't come to council. Council needs to go out to the community. I have done that, I will continue to do that. I'm out all the time, at grassroots level, at business level. If I'm invited, I go. I go, I listen, I support, I participate at every level of the community, and I do so positively and willingly. If I'm re-elected, I will put together a team who's driven by their talents and their passion, because then I think we'll get a better result together.
I want to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is safety, and that is crime. Because the reality is all the things that we've talked about today, all the aspirations, all the visions, they don't mean anything if the community doesn't feel safe. If the community doesn't feel safe, we don't thrive. So we've got to address that. And with the greatest of respect, my heart sinks when I hear the Mayor talking about safety and crime and saying that she's written a letter to the Minister and she's formed another committee and that. Because to me, that's not going to get us anywhere in a hurry. We actually have to come up with some tangible results. We can't depend on the government forever. We will never have the amount of police that we want to have. We will never have it. We have to find the solutions here. And I think that is the whole problem with our approach at the moment. We are continually hoping for something from the government. We're doing this, we're doing that. The answer's here, the answer's in Hamilton. We've got to have faith in our own ability. We can't continually look for answers elsewhere. The answer's in Hamilton. We've got 80 people a week coming here to live. In terms of safety, there's two things I want to emphasise, and one is, I've touched on it before, our people have to get to know each other again, and we need to encourage that. We need to get out on the streets, we need to meet each other, we need to look after each other, and we need to be saying that to our residents. That's number one. Number two, we can't have a private police force, but we can have the next best thing. We've got City Safe, which is the envy of a number of cities around the country. We've got 20 odd people who patrol the city at the moment, who de-escalate situations and work with police. I would advocate us tripling that, quadrupling that amount, because it's only when you get that visible feeling, that sort of Bobby on the beat feeling, where you can see someone there. Sure, they haven't got the powers that police have, but we know they're there, people see them. I think we'll start to get some reassurance in our public. So that's something it's tangible, it's not a magic bullet, but it beats talking and it beats committees and it beats writing letters.
Okay, thank you all. So that concludes tonight's event. Please join me in thanking our three candidates for being here with us this evening. And thank you all of you for being here as well. A reminder that the last day to vote is, if you haven't already, is October 8th, only 11 days away now. From the Chamber's side, we have our September BA4 tomorrow night at Waikato Innovation Park. And next Wednesday morning in this room is our October Inspire session, where Ryan Hamilton will sit down with Dr. Matthew Phillips to learn all about dieting. And this event is open to non-chamber members as well, so we'd love to see you at these events. And lastly, thank you for joining us tonight. Keep safe and see you again soon.